Welcome back. Well, sentiment around policy in South Africa has taken a knock. In the first quarter, the policy uncertainty index compiled by the Northwest University edged slightly higher, sitting at 65.8 points from 65.5. This comes ahead of the national election, which has somewhat weighed on investor confidence and markets. And joining me as we unpack the index is Professor at Northwest University, Raymond Parsons. Thank you so much for your time, Prof. Now, when we talk about policy uncertainty, what metrics are we measuring here, and who does it impact the most?
Well, good evening to you. Look, I think we live in an uncertain world, both from a global point of view and in South Africa. So what we've tried to do over the past few years with our policy uncertainty index to calibrate the level of uncertainty, and this is based on global research and on what we've discovered empirically in South Africa. And for a large part of the time, our index has been in negative territory, and that's been reflected in the fact that our economic performance has been very much below par. And policy uncertainty, among other key factors, has made a contribution towards that situation. So what we look at how many times the issue of policy uncertainty is in fact reflected in the media. We talk to a cohort of economists, how they see uncertainty levels, and we also tap into a Stellenbosch survey of manufacturers. Out of that comes our index, and of course, as I've said, it has been fluctuating, but it's been mainly in negative territory. But the latest one, which is for the first quarter of this year, has also superimposed on it the uncertainties that have arisen around our pending election in May. So that's where we are at the moment.
So would you say that policy uncertainty or policy certainty is really where the economic and political landscape merge?
Well, I think it's important because what the evidence shows, both globally and in South Africa, is that if your policy uncertainty is at an elevated level, or it is well into negative territory, this has a negative impact on investment, and then ultimately on employment, and ultimately even on consumers. In other words, you want to keep the uncertainty levels around how the country will be run, what policies will emerge. You want to keep that to a minimum and preferably into positive territory. What happens in South Africa is not that there's no investment or that our economy doesn't keep moving when there are high levels of uncertainty. It's just that it doesn't perform well enough. And on the investment front, and we know that's what we really want, investment-led growth for South Africa now, that means that you need to look at what the National Development Plan has said. It says that by 2030, if we want to grow at 3%, 4%, and 5%, we need to get fixed investment, that is both the government and the private sector, up to 30% of GDP. We are currently at 15%. That's why we're only growing at 1%. So policy uncertainty and political uncertainty and what might happen after the election, the outcome, what sort of governance will we have, both nationally and at a provincial level, that will be very important for investment decisions about the future and how this economy will operate in future in the light of any shifts in our political economy.
Would you say that the policy uncertainty rests on the actual policies or the actual implementation, where there's maybe just a lack of implementation for what government says they are going to do?
I've listed elsewhere the fact that if we look back over the past few years, we have not lacked for good economic plans.
Yeah.
Whether it's the Reconstruction and Development Plan, GEAR, as GISA, the Growth and Development Summit, whether it was the new growth plan, then more importantly, the National Development Plan, the Economic Reconstruction and Recovery Plan. If we could only implement them, we wouldn't be having this conversation today. There would be more certainty for investors and for the business community. Would say, we have a better idea of where we're going, and we know we have a better idea of what the government may do next. And they are committed to implementing the plan. The problem is we've fallen short. We have fallen short in not implementing a number of well-intentioned and well-designed plans. but in particular, the National Development Plan, which should have been our lodestar. Had we implemented it rigorously from the time it was first announced and to which the government committed itself, I think we would not be facing some of the challenges that we still face today.
Yeah, indeed. I think we've got about 2 months to go until the elections. Of course, lots of uncertainty as we head to that date, as people also make predictions on what the governing party could look like. Thank you so much for your time, Prof. That was Raymond Parsons from the Northwest University.